Hey there, my fellow author. I'm Sarah Elizabeth Sawyer, an old soul kind of writer living my dream as a full-time author and authorpreneur. But I didn't start out living a confident, creative lifestyle. I struggled with the fears and the mental and emotional barriers that so often plague writers at all stages of their author career. But the truth is that with the right knowledge, tools, and training, you can overcome those barriers. I'm here to teach you how I've developed a lifestyle that's allowed me to publish 19 books and counting. Each week, as you tune into the Confident Fiction Author podcast, you'll get clarity on the steps you need to take to advance your writing career. Whether it's developing your ideal writing routine, tackling new skills like dictating your fiction, or overcoming the obstacles life throws your way, this podcast will help you live a more confident, creative lifestyle. Let's get started. Hey there, my friend, and welcome to this week's episode of the Confident Fiction Author Podcast. I'm your host, Sarah Elizabeth Sawyer, and today I'm going to be talking about the scarcity versus abundance mindset, especially when it comes to generating story ideas. Now, back at Christmas, my mom and I did a fun online course that was a breakdown of A Christmas Carol by Charles Dickens. And it was really fun to just look deeper at the written version of the story, not just the movie versions that we're so used to, but to really look deep into the written version, which I've read at least once myself, but to just have this professor break it down. And there was this one line of dialogue that really surprised me. It was one that I hadn't picked up on before, and I don't think it's in any of the movie versions, but I just found it really interesting. And it was something that Belle, Scrooge's fiance, says to him in their breakup scene where she's like, I'm going to release you from your obligation to marry me. And one of the things she says to him is, you fear the world too much. And that just really struck a chord with me whenever I saw that line. Like, I don't even think the professor specifically pulled that line out, but I just saw it on screen and I thought it was so powerful. And we see this so often. And I feel like this is just something that really leads to that scarcity mindset. And when you think about Scrooge, that's what his story was about. He was holding on to everything with such a tight fist that he completely missed out on life. And the reason why he held on with such a tight fist, which is not always made clear in the movie versions, but I feel like Belle just really nailed it when she said, you fear the world too much. And that's why he held on to what he had with such vehemence. And so thinking about that and thinking about the scarcity mindset, it's something that, again, around that time of year, I had a real life example of it. I've got this big candle sitting on our stove, and I really enjoy lighting it in the evening, especially on the weekends. But as it was burning down, I was like, oh, do I really want to light this so often? Because it's going to burn down and then it's going to be gone and I'm not going to have it to enjoy. And so I wanted to just do it when it was like a really special time in the evening, a movie night or something. And it was like, my mindset was, this is the only time we'll ever have this big column candle. Like, it's not replaceable. And it finally occurred to me that I could burn that candle all I wanted and go buy another one when it was done. So this scarcity mindset can permeate all parts of our lives and especially with authors. And so what I wanted to cover today is, for authors, one of the biggest scarcity mindset issues that I see is the fear of lacking ideas. Some authors will just cling to that first novel for too long. You may work at it relentlessly, just trying to make it perfect because you're afraid you may never really have another good story idea. And that's a scarcity mindset. With an abundance mindset, you know you can finish drafts without fear that it's the only one you'll ever be able to write. You know there are more story ideas out there. So today I'm going to cover 3 actions you can take to foster an abundance mindset as an author when it comes to generating story ideas. Now, if you are the kind of author who already has an abundance of ideas, this episode will give you techniques of writing those ideas in fresh ways. So let's get into it. The first thing you can do to foster an abundance mindset when it comes to generating story ideas is to read widely. There are so many ideas out there. There are so many stories and scenarios and ways of creating a story. And I find myself, whenever I read more, it does give me that abundance mindset because it's generating ideas, not copycatting someone else's work, but just giving me ideas that I can springboard off of for the kinds of stories that I want to create. And just knowing that authors have been telling stories and there have been storytellers for centuries, and we're really not going to run out of stories. So you can have confidence that you will have more story ideas when you're reading widely because everything you read can be fodder for your next story. With doing this, though, don't let your brain trick you into thinking everything has been written. The digital shelves are literally unlimited, and there are readers out there who want to engage in your unique brand of storytelling. So read widely and let that encourage you that there are plenty of stories out there and there is plenty of room for your voice on the bookshelves. The second thing you can do to really help you with that abundance mindset and knowing that you can generate unlimited story ideas is do a weekly writing challenge. So find an organization that does, even if it's not weekly, if it's monthly, just a group or somewhere that offers weekly writing challenges where you are constantly generating new ideas. This was what I did beyond reading widely whenever I was first starting with my fiction writing career. Is I was a part of faithwriters.com, and they had a weekly writing challenge, and up to 200 authors would enter that every single week. And it's actually still going on, not quite to the level that it was whenever I was in it. Not that it was because of me. Everyone just kind of migrated to Facebook groups and all. But what they do each week is they release a topic, and you have 1 week to come up with a unique story idea, write, edit, and submit it within that 7-day time frame. It was super challenging, but super incredible for me to be able to have that challenge every single week of they would drop just this random topic, or usually it was themed by the quarter, but it would be like one of the quarters was just colors. And so each week it was a different color. One week it was blue, and another week it was purple and brown. And that's all you had, but it was enough to just get your juices flowing, and you had to just be disciplined to sit down and have some brainstorming time and just allow yourself to explore all of the different possibilities. And the great thing was, with the number of people entering the challenge, all on the same topic of, say, white, you knew that the first ideas that came to your mind, you probably needed to chunk because everyone else was going to have that. That was going to be the immediate first thing that came to their mind. So that's the great thing about a challenge, is when it's given that, say, like, here's the first line, and everyone has to use the same first line in their story. And wherever your mind goes to first, know that a lot of other authors, that's what's going to come to their mind because of pop culture and similar backgrounds and all. So move beyond those ideas and come up with something that is uniquely you, that is going to be unique and different from everyone else. And then ultimately, you're going to bring it out with your own style and voice. So doing writing challenges regularly is a super powerful way of training yourself to generate new ideas on command. And just know that there is an abundance of ideas. You have an abundance of stories within you, even if they're just short micro things that you can expand later, or that you just know you're going to be able to generate new stories beyond this first novel that you're working on, or if you've done 10 novels and you're just wondering, am I going to be able to come up with any other story ideas? Am I played out? Have I mined all the gold in this creek? Just know it replenishes. The more you use your imagination and challenge yourself to write stories, the more those will replenish in your imagination. So the third thing you can do to foster that abundance mindset around generating story ideas is knowing that you can train yourself to generate ideas on command. And I know this because I have done it. I've done it live in front of my students in the dictation boot camp and in other trainings where I just need to come up with a story idea or from a prompt in a writing challenge like I just talked about. I learned that I could generate ideas on command because I have trained myself to do that. And one of the ways is by people watching or people listening. And I will say I don't eavesdrop like on a private conversation, but if there's a conversation going on in a public place and I have the opportunity to just kind of quiet myself and put my phone away and listen to what's going on around me and watch what's going on around me, that's where a lot of my story ideas and inspiration come from. I have a recent example of this that just happened to me this week where I was in one of our Choctaw health clinics, getting some health checkups and stuff. You guys know I've had a few health things going on, but I'm okay. I will just say that. I just was getting some other tests done. And so in the waiting area, there were these two older Choctaw gentlemen, and it was funny because they were checking in line ahead of me, and one of them, he turned to the other and he said, "We're related, eh?" And the other one's like, "Yeah, related through Leon, whoever." And so they just kind of had these one sentence exchanges going back and forth. And then after we all got checked in, they sat down, and I just went ahead and sat down in the chair closest to them and just continued to listen to their conversation. I was listening to their dialect. I was listening to their stories that they had from their growing up years and their mutual family connections. So I was picking that up and generating an entire story world in my mind and how it would relate to my next series, and that's going to be set in the time period that they were growing up in Oklahoma. And I get so many compliments. I've gotten so many compliments over the years with my Choctaw Tribune series where people are like, this is the place I grew up in. This is the Oklahoma that I grew up in, even though it wasn't statehood then. But just the feel and the dialect and the people, they're like, there's a lot, this is authentic. This feels like home to me. And I just love that because I did not grow up in Oklahoma, but when I'm there, I'm always listening to the people around me and I'm observing them. And it just gives me that fodder that I need for my stories and to be able to share them. And just a quick side note, I will say I'm always careful with what I do share. If I do overhear something that is more private or maybe even sacred, I'm not going to share that in my stories. And if there is something along the lines that I'm wanting to share, and maybe I've had a conversation with someone, I will ask them if it's all right if I share that in a future story. Not saying that I'm guaranteeing that I'm going to put it in there, but would it be all right if I put this in a story someday? And they always say yes. I've never had anyone say, "No, I don't want you to put my story in there." And of course, it's in a fictional setting and all, but just a thing to think about when you're people watching and maybe overhearing conversations and stuff. Fabulous way of training yourself to generate ideas on command while also being respectful to people's privacy, and especially if you're dealing with any kind of cultural things, being respectful of that culture. So just wanted to put that out there. And many of you know I'm a tribal member of the Choctaw Nation of Oklahoma, so that's what the majority of my stories and my characters are based on. So just wanted to put that out there with that third thing of what you can do to generate stories on command, that you can generate ideas on command. And one of the ways you can train yourself to do that beyond reading widely and doing writing challenges is people watching and just really focusing on the world around you and just taking that in. And again, knowing there are so many story ideas out there. So recapping briefly here, the first thing that you can do to really cultivate that abundance mindset when it comes to generating story ideas is to, number one, read widely and let that assure you that there are so many stories out there. Let it inspire your future stories and know that there are, while you're enjoying what you're reading, there's probably a story idea coming up in you of what you would love to read, and it has not been written yet. So just let that encourage you and build your confidence that everything you're reading and help you generate ideas for your next story. Number two is to do writing challenges. Do one weekly if you can. So I talked about, I was in faithwriters.com. I committed to doing that challenge for as long as it took to reach the master level. So you had to graduate up through the levels. And it took me 16 months of being committed to that challenge every week to reach the master level. And it was an incredible training ground for me and being able to constantly generate new story ideas. And then lastly, the third thing is train yourself to generate ideas on command through people watching and just observing the world around you. And when something comes up, just let your imagination loose and create a story around the people that you're seeing and the conversations that you're hearing. Wrapping up here, I just want to encourage you to remember that scarcity will have you believing you only have a limited number of books inside you. So scarcity is thinking, if I give away all of my words, if I write all of these words, I won't have anything to write. Abundance is knowing that the more words you give away, the more words you have to give away. So if you're stuck on that first draft, you're wanting to make it perfect because you may never have another idea for a story again, I want to encourage you to just write that story and then move on to the next project. That is all for this week's episode of the Confident Fiction Author Podcast. I will see you next week. In the meantime, happy story generating. Take care.